We are recording the interview of Michael Cobb. This interview is being conducted by Ericka Carter from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. Also in attendance are Karen Bosch Cobb. This interview is being recorded at the Doubletree Hotel, 300 Prestige Place in Miamisburg, Ohio. It is 12:30 p.m. on September 13th, 2019. Where and when were your parents born?
My parents were both born, my dad was born in Sanger, California in about 1912, and my mom in Fresno, California, 1913.
1913. Wow. Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
Robert Cobb. He was a truck driver and a farmer. And my mom, Roberta A. Cobb, Grace was her maiden name. And she was a nurse.
Where were you born?
I was born in Fresno, California.
Oh, I'm from Bakersfield.
Really? How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Okay. Where do you live now?
We live in Sky Harbor, which is an area just north of Fresno, Bryant, California.
So still in California?
Yeah.
I wish I lived in California still. Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have two brothers. Sheridan is deceased, and my brother Pete, born in 1939, he's still living and in reasonably good health.
I like reasonably.
Yeah.
The other way is not great.
Yeah.
Did either of them serve?
Yes, they both served. Sherry did 20 years in the Navy, and Pete did 5 years in the Army.
I don't often hear that you know all three served. Was there a particular reason why everybody served?
I don't know, we're just patriotic, I guess.
Were you raised that way?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so what were you doing before you entered the service?
I was in high school.
Okay, and when did you make your mind up that the military was for you?
Well, I kind of admired my older brother. He was in the Navy. And my dad had a good friend, Commander Bell, who was a reserve officer. And I had enlisted with Commander Bell as a Naval Aviation Cadet when I was 17 and a half years old.
So you enlisted as a reserve? Or?
Yes, I enlisted in the Naval Reserve.
Is that like the Guard?
Not quite. It's you know, it may be similar. I don't know that much about the Guard, but basically you do ordinarily you would do like 2 years, and then you would do your reserve time either before you're called up or whatever. In my case, I would have been I would go to boot camp, serve boot camp, and then serve with the squadron until I attended college. And then once I had a 2-year degree, I would go to flight school as a Naval Aviation Cadet. And the difference between that and I would say a regular enlistment would be that they do a very thorough background check on you as an officer candidate, instead of that just enlisting and going directly to boot camp.
Interesting.
So I enlisted to be a pilot, is basically what I enlisted as.
Did other people do that? Was that a big...
Yeah, it was fairly common, I think, at the time.
Okay.
Another one of my squadron mates, well, in fact, there's two of them. Enlisted. Two additional individuals I know of that were in my squadron that were NAVCADs. And what virtually happened was 2 of us, we got called up because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the missiles of October. I got called up, all three of us got called up along with the entire squadron. And as a result, I didn't get in, I wasn't going to college or anything like that. I was in the, in full-time Navy at that point in time. My friend Ron King, he hadn't gone to college yet either, so he was called up in the same manner. Our other friend, he went to flight school because he already had his college. He got shot down in Vietnam and spent basically, I'm not sure how many years, but he was in there with the Admiral and the other people we know of who spent time at the Hanoi Hilton. So his wasn't too slick. So maybe I was lucky in a certain instance.
I got to meet Colonel Gregory William Gregory. He was the guy that flew the plane over the Cuban missiles and found them.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes. So he was just really, really awesome. He was 99 at the time. Oh, he was so awesome. You're awesome too. So.
Well, are you aware of how we really knew about it? There was a Russian general who was our spy who told us about it first. Penrovsky. General Penrovsky. The Russians found out about it later and executed him. But that's how we really knew about it.
I've heard that before. Yeah. Very interesting stuff. So I learned so much just sitting here. It's so wonderful to just sit and talk and listen. Okay, so you jumped a lot ahead. So I'm going to go back and just ask a few more questions to get just a little bit more background knowledge. What year was it when you were supposed to go to college?
Well, I graduated from high school in June, and then I would have started college, but the next would have been September, I suppose. But then we were called up.
What year?
That was in '61. And the actual final call-up October of 1961 is when we were called up. Okay,
so you graduated, no more college. Had you enrolled?
I was working on it. I was going to go to City College. And then we were just, basically we got called up.
Were they going to pay, was the military going to pay for your college?
No, that wasn't part of the program.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they pay for your college after you got out?
Yes.
Well,
not the college, no, because they hadn't really approved the GI Bill. When I got out, I went to work as an investigator, a private investigator, and then I was attending law school. But then a problem occurred, so the money didn't come through, and working full time, going to law school. I made the first year through. And then the finances kind of ran out. Subsequent to that, I utilized my GI Bill to obtain my pilot's license. I had a private pilot's license in the first place, but then I used my GI Bill to get my commercial license.
So you were set on being a pilot, whether the military did it for you or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right. Way to see a goal and get a goal. Okay. So how was basic training?
I caught viral pneumonia.
Oh.
And spent I don't know, probably a week, 10 days in the hospital when I was home on leave. And but see, the basic training in the reserves is different, because this occurred before I was called up, okay? And we didn't use M1s, whatever. I qualified on 45, so far as that goes, and Thompson submachine gun, because we were Airedales. We weren't infantry or anything like that, so we didn't have the normal type of a basic training as such.
Had you shot a gun before?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh, I was born with a gun in my hand.
Was that because you lived in Fresno?
No, it's because we were farmers and we had to kill rabbits to live.
Okay. I'm sorry, a little California humor there.
I probably fired a gun when I was probably 4 or 5 years old.
Okay, so you were already used to it. How long was your basic training?
It was only about 2 weeks, plus the interior time. It's more like 9 months. Period of basic training, but then you actually do 2 weeks of active duty in the reserves. That's kind of how it works. Your basic training is on your weekends when we fly out of Fresno to NAS Oakland, and then we undergo the schooling part, and then marching, military discipline, la-di-da. And it isn't like you're doing it in a 2-month period of time or whatever, like say you went through basic training. So we do it on a part-time basis, and then we have 2 weeks that is all, a full-time, more of a situation. And that's when we, mostly do the shooting and qualifying and what have you.
Okay, okay. And so when did you go to, I don't know what they call it in the Navy. It's not, is it job training? It's not AIT.
Well, there's different schools and things like that that you attend. So these are, you do these in addition to your regular duty. Like I went to radioman school, and I went at survival school. The ejection seat training. These, all kind of take place as you get qualified for them. So it's, it's just over a period of time at different locations.
So you say ejection seat training, was that to fix them or to pop out of them?
No, that was to jump out of them, to get shot out of them. It's part of flight training for airmen. You have, certain things, infantry does certain things, etc. And aviation has certain things you do to qualify. Like you go to survival school in order to become an air crewman, and so there's just the different things you pretty much have to learn.
Did you find any of this difficult or super fun or exhilarating? I mean, imagine being shot out of a chair would be.
No, jumping out of an airplane was scary as hell though. When I went to survival school instead, that's the only time I ever did it, and I have no desire to do it again.
Because, I mean, the plane works fine, right?
Yeah, there's no reason to leave an airplane when the wings are on. Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay. So how long did all that training take?
Well, from 1959 to 61 is when I was doing
the training,
and this sort of thing. Yes.
Okay. And so I want to say we would call them identifiers, right? Like, I'm a diesel mechanic and then a Hotel 8 recovery specialist. So that's my identifier. It's something extra I went to school to do. Mm-hmm. This is just you're an airman and these are all the things that airmen do? Like everybody got that training, or these are special trainings for you?
No, they're all specialized. All training is specialized. When I went into the Navy initially, I was a photographer. And but when I was called up, there were 2 photographers in there already.
Okay, so.
Okay, so when I became a third class, I was an aviation electronics technician. I switched, and I was qualified as an E4 or an E5 to take the test. I had completed the E4 test.
Now I want to write down everything. So you said you got trained in photography?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you got trained as a...
aviation electronics technician.
Electronic. Okay, and then what happened? What else were you trained at?
That's primarily it. Those are, both are air crew positions. So, with the photo, you go aboard an airplane and go out and take photographs, and you also would take, ceremonial photographs, work in the dark room, this sort of thing, which we had a very advanced dark room at Oakland, which we did color photography even. But you're basically doing maps. That's the primary, you're doing maps for the Army. So the Army,
We're so needy. Okay.
Well, people on the ground, the Marines, whatever. You know, you're doing a mapping primarily.
All right. So thank you for being thorough in answering my questions, because this is, I don't know if it's a program a lot of people have heard of for that time period. Okay, so through all your training, 2 years have went by, or 3?
About 2.
2 years have went by. How long did you serve completely?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so year 3, or year 2, hey, we need you full time right now.
Exactly.
Where do your orders say you have to go?
We were called up. By that time, they had switched our base to Alameda, NAS Alameda. So we were ordered up to, I was in VP 875, which is fixed wing patrol squadron 875. They called up 875, the people out of 872, which was also at Alameda, and the squadrons out of Dallas, 701, VP 701, and there may have been people from another squadron, but basically they took these 3 squadrons and made one full complete squadron out of it. With I think we had 14 aircraft at one time, P2Vs, patrol aircraft.
What's your favorite aircraft?
My favorite aircraft's P-51.
I just
Buddy of mine had one, so I got to do a little flying on it.
I just like to ask that question.
Of course, the problem was when the fuel bill came, his wife didn't like it, made him sell it.
Oh.
He paid $10,000 for the airplane back in about 67, 68, and the fuel bill was using his credit card. We'd fly to Reno, have lunch, you know, things like this, and they didn't let me land it. Anyway, they're pretty tricky at any rate, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, very aerobatic and all. So that's my favorite airplane.
So, what was the fuel bill?
50 gallons an hour. That's cruise. And if you step on it, it goes 75 to 100 gallons an hour.
Okay.
But anyway, he just used the credit card and stuff, and then his wife found the fuel bill, and that was the end of that. But hey, the airplane today, if you still had it, it'd be worth $9-10 million anyway, at a minimum. But he sold it.
So first duty station, 20...
Oakland, NAS Oakland, first duty station. NAS Alameda after that.
Okay, so it's your second duty station.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell me what an average day looked like for you?
Average day? Well, you know, you get up, you got reveille, etc. You know, you go to the chow hall, eat, head on over to the hangar. And I was in crypto. I was communications at that time because I had a very high clearance, and they didn't have anybody available that did. So I would make the runs to the crypto center, get the messages, distribute them around to who needed to see them. I was also in charge of air intelligence and ASW. So we had a different safe in my office for each. We had an air intelligence officer, and you know, he dealt with that. And then we had an ASW officer, and then we had a communications officer. So my main duties were in communications. I didn't have that much to deal with so far as the ASW and air intelligence. That was pretty much done by the officers individually. But I needed to open their safes because they were, quite frankly, too lazy to open their damn safes and close them. So it was one of my responsibilities.
What rank were you?
Whenever I left, I had to lock them up. At that time, I was an airman, E3, initially. I made, on Christmas Island, I made E4, and I hit the coral one night and got infection from the coral, and since they were having difficulty, they couldn't transfer me out, or I got busted. So basically, I got busted back to E3.
I don't
Office hours, captain's mast. What do they call it in the Navy? It's not a court martial, it's an administrative action. But what happened was I missed a bomb drop, is what happened. I didn't get over to I didn't make my normal station for the bomb drop, and I didn't get over to the sick bay because I was too sick to even move.
Okay.
I had an infection from the coral, but the old man, he didn't give a damn.
Okay, I understand now. I was like, so you...
It was a problem because they didn't have anybody else to run comm. Everybody else was occupied and they didn't have the clearances. And so it was like, oh shit, let's just bust the guy and keep him instead of sending him out of here.
Okay. That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, you know the military.
I do. Yeah. So, okay then. So after that, you got sent where and why?
Well, we were assigned to Operation Dominic, which is a nuclear test off Christmas Island. So we transported first to Barbers Point, which is in Hawaii, on the big main island, and then we back down to Christmas Island. On the way over, we had a rather unusual situation. I did at any rate. We were traveling on mats. We didn't go, with the squadron. You had the normal crew on the aircraft to fly them over, but we flew mats. On the way over, we passed the point of no return. We lost the first engine, then subsequently the second engine and the third engine. And off the very end of the runway, we were down to one engine going into Barbers Point. But believe it or not, that was relatively common occurrence when you're on a reciprocating aircraft. It was just, you had to kind of keep your mud. That was an adventure.
Not the word I'd use, but sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody panicked.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. And you're trained for that though, right?
Yeah.
You're trained not to panic in the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. How did your parents feel about all this? It didn't matter. I mean, I guess they were cool because everybody was in the military.
Yeah, well, me and my brothers and I were all in the service pretty much simultaneously at that point in time. But we didn't bother. I probably didn't even bother mentioning it to anybody, to tell you the truth. Just wasn't. It was, that's just the way it goes.
Okay. So you said we.
People aboard the aircraft.
No. You said we got assigned to Christmas.
The squadron.
So everybody. Did you have any like close friends or buddies or battle buddies that you were close to?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My best friend was a fellow by the name of Chuck Landers. We had joined up the same day. His service number was one different from mine, and we'd pretty much gone through. Chuck had been assigned to an S2F squadron, and I was in a P2V squadron, so we didn't actually go overseas together. Now later we got back together, but yeah, I was friendly with all my squadron mates and stuff, and we went Liberty together and enjoyed ourselves.
Okay. Okay, great. So you landed in the mud, and then what happens?
I landed in the mud. What? Wait a minute.
You landed.
We went to Barbers Point first.
And then.
Okay.
And then you barely landed.
Well,
with one engine.
We made it.
Okay.
And, we were down to one, and then we were assigned barracks there. We stayed at Barbers Point while we got organized. Okay, pretty much.
And somebody fixed the plane.
Yeah, no, that wasn't one of ours. It was MATS, Military Air Transport. I flew over on a MATS aircraft.
Okay.
And the P2Vs went over, separately. And So then, you know, we kind of settled in there. I think we were at Barber's Point for maybe 6 weeks, something like that, to get, you know, get everything organized and all. And then we flew to Christmas Island, and and then we were there about 9 months. You know, just I'm not exactly sure the exact dates, but you know, just slightly under a year, something like that. The total time of the squadron activation was probably about a year, so we were probably there about 9 months.
Okay. So you get there, and what's going on? Tell me about it.
Well, it's a tropical island, about 100 miles from the equator. So it's hot, it's wet, rains every night. There's not much to do. I have a Jeep that I can drive, and the other guys have 6x6s that they're driving. So, you know, our normal routine would be, I would be, you know, go to Cobb, get our communications for the day, distribute them to who needed to see them, and then go back. I was also responsible for burning the classified information, logging those that were necessary to be logged, and be accountable for basically all the communications. So whatever traffic was coming in, I would convey it to the people who had to see it.
That's a big job for E3.
Well, I had the clearance, and, you know, there weren't very many guys that did, so it's just, you know, it's just kind of unusual. I was in sort of an unusual situation.
Did you get any perks because you had that position?
Yeah, I got to put my 14 hours flight time in every month, so I got my flight pay no matter what. So that was a nice perk, because I was basically an office guy. But our flights generally ran 12 to 14 hours, so that would, you know, the guys get burned out pretty quick. And I was qualified to run radar, ECM, and I could handle a bow watch on the air because I'd been qualified before to do that.
So all of this helped you with your plane and private license later?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were you not interested in, I guess I should ask, did you do anything with your private license that wasn't personal?
No, mostly it was just personal.
And then you went and got a commercial license. Did you fly?
I was working on my commercial, and I barely got, well, the problem with that was, so you have a commercial license, you have 200 hours, 200 plus. Well, you're now competing with that guy who was flying in Vietnam who has 2,500 hours, or 3,000 hours. You can't compete. And they were bound and determined to get out. They did not want to stay in the service at that period of time. You know, they went over, they did their tour, they got out, they went commercial. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't compete with that. And I wasn't interested in becoming a flight instructor to try to build up my hours by that point in time. I mean, you know, I was 27, 28 by then. And it was, you know, I needed to make a living. And you can't make a living as a flight instructor.
Okay. All right, so back to Christmas Island, mm-hmm. Right? So you're just picking up comms. Anything else happen there?
Well, you know, it rained a lot of crabs, you know. So we'd have contests at night. I had my Jeep, and this guy had a 6x6. So we would go like 100 yards and see how many crabs we could kill. And of course, we, you know, had a little to drink in the meantime. There was nothing to do, so we were, you know, pretty much bored. So we all became pretty much alcoholics. Not much, you know, not much to say about that. I could drink a fifth a day without any problem at all. And, you know, which is, you know, thank God when I got out of the Navy and went to college, I couldn't afford to do that sort of activity. Otherwise, it would have really totally destroyed my life. But it was just, you know, it was a very boring place, basically. And flying a patrol for 14 hours, that's not very exciting. Hell, there's nothing there but water. And we did find a derelict ship. And we had one patrol I was on. There was a Russian trawler So we made a bomb run on the Russian trawler and popped open the bomb bay doors and scared the shit out of them. They were running everywhere. But the only thing that was in those bomb bays was fuel cells. And we weren't about to drop those. But that was kind of fun.
Okay.
And I made a model airplane, which I crashed almost immediately because it was just boring. And in those days, you didn't have radio controls. You just had this little thing that you turned it like that. You could make the airplane go up and down. And so I flew it around for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I thought, crashed it, and threw it away. But, it kind of kept me busy. One of the things about Christmas, and of course you didn't experience this in your military service, but there was so much humidity all the time. You put your shoes in a locker. If you didn't clean them up on a regular basis, you go back 2 weeks and they're covered with fuzz. I mean, they're just the fuzz is what I would call it. So you kind of had to keep your stuff up. We didn't wear standard Navy uniforms. We all wore khakis, desert boots. In fact, as I saw a gal yesterday, she had some gorgeous looking desert boots, but they weren't an issue, and I kind of suspected that. But so we basically wore British uniforms when we were there.
Okay. So what happened after Christmas?
He should talk about the British.
Oh.
He should talk about the British being on Christmas Island.
Oh, they were there with us. There was a small contingent.
Why?
Of the British. It was their island.
Oh.
That's where we were doing the bombs. Christmas Island was a British protectorate, and they had used it earlier, about 5 years earlier, to detonate. I think they detonated four A-bombs there earlier. Now, during my time there was 27 in the Dominic series, and some were hydrogen and some were atomic bombs. I witnessed 21 different bomb blasts. One of the major ones knocked out the power in Hawaii at the time. And unbeknownst to us at the time, I learned this much later, I think it was the Oakland Tribune had a picture of a very beautiful bomb blast on it, which the film had been sent by one of my squadron mates, and his dad had taken the liberty of taking it into the Oakland Tribune, and so at that point in time they confiscated our cameras and no more photography was done. However, when I got my camera back, they never removed the film, so I do have some nice mushroom clouds in my repertoire at home.
You should talk about being sworn to secrecy and all that.
Well, that's later. That's much later when I get out of the service.
So you're running comms and bombs are going off?
Well, no, we're all on the runway then. We all have to gather. They have to be accountable for everyone. So you go there, and everybody, you gather at the runway. It's nighttime. It's for some reason they want to drop the bomb just before daylight. So you have these real funky goggles. Put the goggles on. You turn your back to the blast, and then bang, it goes off, and it's brighter than daylight. And about the time you turn around, you feel the impact of the blast, and it just really hits you real hard. I've heard people describe this as a rumble. It was never a rumble to me. It was like a bang, about the shortest, quickest, hardest bang you could possibly imagine. I mean, the noise was just awesome, but I don't recall any kind of rumble. It was just bang, real loud like that, and then the shock wave hits you. About the time you hear the bang, the shock wave comes.
So when I hear you describe it, I imagine it being like a car door slamming.
Well, hell no, it's loud. See, the sound is traveling at about the same speed as the shock wave. Sound travels, I can't remember exactly what it is, 600 something miles an hour, etc. at sea level. But anyway, the sound is traveling and the shock wave is coming basically, you know, simultaneously. So they hit pretty close to the same. And of course, dirt's blowing and stuff like that.
What did it feel like?
It's just pretty awesome, you know, really. And, you know, I think some of the guys that were closer, we were probably about 20 miles away, I'm gonna guess, maybe 8 miles in some instances. They didn't really give us a lot of details about that. It's, you know, it's close enough that, you know, that you're gonna get the wind and the shock wave and the heat, you know, the whole 9 yards. But we weren't as close as some people, like a mile away and stuff. They were just fried. So
Physically?
Yeah, I think some of the guys in Nevada probably died from it initially. You know, I mean, they were just too close.
Okay, so would it be like standing in front of a speaker that's like, there was this commercial, I don't know if it was for Sony, but there was this guy and then they had these huge speakers and then they turn them on and then his whole body moved. Do you remember this commercial?
I don't.
No.
I remember the hair going back and all that kind of stuff. And he's sitting there, it's like he's in a breeze or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it similar to that? With that feeling, have you ever stood next to a bass speaker when it goes off and you can feel it in your chest and it's just like...
Not really, because I don't really like a lot of bass. I'm into treble. I do not.
You're
like
not
that.
all about that bass?
No, I don't dig the bass. I'm into treble, you know. You don't get bass out of a saxophone, you know.
But I was just trying to maybe see if
It's real fast. It's not like a continuous thing. It's just like, you know, bang, you know, just like that. It just hits you. And the heat and, you know, the wind and then the dirt, that sort of thing. And
ooh, kind of like being in a sandstorm, maybe.
yeah, but very, very brief.
Okay.
Because, you know, boom, and just, it's like, you ever been next to a 5-inch 38 when it goes off, or a howitzer? The concussion you're feeling from the artillery as it goes off? You gotta tell me, you're in the Army, you had to be that. I mean, you gotta be near some artillery when it fires off, especially if you're forward of the muzzle.
Yeah, I did my best not to, but
The concussion is basically, you know,
okay.
what I'm talking about, that you get from it.
Yes, I see. I better understand. Okay. I was trying to, like, so our listeners and viewers can kind of get an understanding. I understand a non-military person hopefully hasn't been standing next to a howitzer.
Yeah, well, especially if you're head of the muzzle, you're gonna really get it. But even a rifle, if you're forward of the muzzle of a rifle, you know, you fire off 308, and you're gonna feel it if you're ahead of the muzzle, you know. So hopefully, you know, you're.
All right. Well, thank you for that
Do you want to talk about the light in your
description.
Oh yeah, your X-ray. At the time, you can see your bones. Your buddies are walking around as skeletons and this sort of thing for a brief period of time, and actually it lasts a while.
The skeleton effect?
Yeah, yeah, because you get X-rayed, you're being, you know, totally X-rayed. So your skeleton, a lot of people talk about their veins, but I don't remember veins, just bones. And it's like, you know, you're dressed in very light clothing in the first place. You're wearing shorts, and you know, you just have khaki shorts on, and you know, the skeletons are there. You know, it's pretty trippy from that point of view.
How did you feel about all that?
Well, you know, at the time it wasn't, you know, I didn't know the ramifications particularly. And we were far enough away and it was over water, so it wasn't like the sky filled with trash. Or, you know, there was, you know, the dirt that was on the ground around us would come flying by, but it wasn't like we were getting a lot of shrapnel. That only happened once. And that was on Johnson Island when they had to, abort a hydrogen bomb. The rockets were fired from Johnson Island. And we had a contingent at Johnson Island also, in addition to Christmas Island. But all the bombs that we had were B-52 delivered. And then, but at Johnson, they had rocket launched. And they had they had a launch, and they had to abort it. Well, they blew it up, but they didn't detonate the bomb. You know, they aborted the nuclear reaction. Well, that ended up with, I believe, 127 pieces of shrapnel through one of our aircraft. And the 3 that were there did get damaged, but one of them, like I said, it had 127 holes in it from the shrapnel falling down on the guys.
That's terrible. Just terrible.
What about some of the guys that you knew who flew through the cloud? Talk about that.
Well, there were 3 pilots. They were all reserve pilots, as well as us. For some reason, the military decided they were going to reuse reserves for almost this entire program. So these guys, they're Air Force guys, they volunteered. And we had...
No, were they voluntold, or they really
no,
volunteered?
I think they actually did volunteer.
Okay.
We didn't volunteer, we were told to go, but these guys were reserve pilots. And they, you know, when military pilots make pretty decent money, you know, especially, you know, you get your flight pay and your hazardous duty pay and all this. So we had these stainless steel Canberras. They were made in Britain, but they were made specifically for this. They had scoops on the ends of the wings. So the Canberra would take off, and at the time of the mushroom cloud, they would take the scoop, fly through, get samples of the cloud. And I heard a story. This didn't happen on Christmas Island, not that I know of. I think it was an earlier test. One flight just flew right into it, disappeared. So obviously, I don't know, he went in too early, but nobody flew into the cloud after that, so far as I know, because the airplane disappeared, never to be seen, heard of again, just vanished, along with the pilot. The 3 pilots we had one of the guys come to one of our squadron reunions. He said that one guy died almost immediately after the test, within 2 or 3 years, one of the pilots. They were all friends, I guess. And another guy died about 20 years later, and he was really the only one that survived. But when the planes came back, they were, you know, washed down, all that. You know, they decontaminated the aircraft and all this kind of thing. And he doesn't know why he made it, and they don't. And I don't know why I made it, and so many of my friends died. It's just, it's not the bullet that has your name on it, it's the one that says to whom it may concern. And it's, you know, there's no rhyme or reason that, you know, we understand. But some of the guys started dying pretty quickly. And then like me, you know, other than, you know, having difficulty conceiving and some things like that, I just haven't had some of the health problems that other people had, and we don't know why. You know, nobody really knows why. Just, you know, we're all different, so, you know, just weird. But the funny thing is, it seems like the greater your exposure, the less your chances of having a problem. I met a guy who administered virtually every test that was ever done. There was nothing wrong with him.
Oh, Ernie.
Ernie. Yeah.
So maybe it's like getting the flu vaccine, right? Like, you know, if it happens, your body builds immunity, your body builds immunity, your body builds immunity, or you just got great DNA.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I don't anymore, but maybe I did then, because I know my DNA's been beat up. Just to what extent? I wish, you know, somebody would start doing some tests so we could figure it out. But it's just, you know, we don't know. So it's hard to say.
You should call the Incredible Hulk.
The Incredible Hulk. Anyway.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But, yeah.
Okay, so do you have any particular feelings about all this?
Well, my feelings go toward well, let me kind of tell you a little bit more of my story.
Okay.
And I don't really know if I've ever actually discussed this with my wife, because for a long period of time I didn't realize it. I was dating a gal, and when I got back, you know, we had sex actually, and when I got back from when I actually got out of the service, she had had a child, and the child had hydroencephalitis and died almost, you know, within reason. She said she didn't know if I was actually the father or not, and she didn't hold me responsible or anything like that. And at the time, you know, I didn't realize all the ramifications of what were going on. Well, Karen and I didn't hook up until I was in my 30s, mid-30s, was I 35, 36. And I had had a child actually before that. I was a real asshole. You know, when I was a kid, I was just a dick. And I had had a child before, and I had made an agreement with the gal's father that you know, we tried to adopt the baby, and he said no. So I had agreed with him that I would never make any attempt to contact this child. Well, this was before Christmas Island. When my wife and I were on, we were honeymoon, but we were on an anniversary trip to Colombia. This gal waited on me, and I thought, gosh, she kind of looks familiar. And I look over, and I see her and me at about age 12 or 14, something like that, hauling ass out of the place, and it's me. So I knew, oh my God, that's my son. And he looked fine, you know, there was no ramification. That's the only time I ever saw him, is that one time when we were there, and she had waited on the table and realized who it was, grabbed her kid, you know, my son, and took off. And that's really, and like I would say, it was me. It was like a picture of me when I was 14 years old. But that was actually the only time I ever saw him. And I'm gonna say chances are he was fairly healthy. It happened before Christmas Island. When my wife and I tried to conceive, we had tremendous problems, and she was examined, I was examined. My sperm were not all that good, motility wasn't all that good, some of them looked weird. So what they did was they tried to we took Clomid, which is a medication to, you know, increase your sperm count and this sort of thing. Well, it didn't work, and but we got pregnant 3 times. And my wife had 3 miscarriages. We just kind of gave up. We hung up the Clomid, and we cried a lot. The suicide story shows comes back. Oh, comes back to you. At any rate, we were successful. Finally, and I won't go into the spirituality, you know, of all of it, but we know that Karen's half-sister had died, and she was scuba diving and drowned in Monterey. Her body was recovered, but we were quite close to her husband and her, and we helped Steve out, and as in 2 earlier times, we just had to have intercourse, just, you know, I mean, like that. It was like the spirit came upon us. Well, on this occasion we were lucky, because my wife got pregnant, we went full term, and we have our daughter Clarkia. But she's she's had her trials too. And, but she's tough as hell. And she's been able to overcome it, you know, one way, shape, form, or other. And I just learned that she has celiac disease, and I just learned that's one of the precursors of this. A friend of mine just happened to tell me that the VA told him he's got celiac due to the nuclear radiation. And she had fibromyalgia when she was about 12. And she does yoga, she backpacks, she does acupuncture. So she's able to overcome this through her strength. But she's, you know, to me, it's like, you know, when's the gun gonna go off? And when's it gonna get worse? It's terrifying when you think that, you know, something's gonna happen due to what happened to me. And, you know, later on in her life, it takes, you know, several years for some of these things to really come out. She's 27 now, and like I said, she's tough as hell, and she's able to overcome it. But it's very, very scary when you think about the future. Is she going to be able to have kids? You know, will I ever see a grandchild? You know, I'm 77, or will be in a day or two. So I don't know if I'm going to be around. But hopefully, you know, she'll meet somebody and fall in love and hopefully be successful as a parent, if she wants to be. So there's the things, it's kind of funny how when we keep coming to these conventions, we just keep learning more and more and more, you know, and the government just, you know, giving us this, you know, the one thing they have done is we have the Agent Orange and Atomic Veterans registry at the VA, so they're kind of watching us. And we get our health care pretty much taken care of. My wife and I are pretty well off financially, so I do co-pays. And, you know, if you're under a certain financial situation, you don't have to do that, but I'm more than willing to do that. So we're getting fantastic health care through the VA, and they are, you know, they're monitoring it. But it would certainly be nice if they would take some responsibility for our kids. And you'll hear horror stories from these guys about, you know, what's with their children. You know, some of them, it's not immediate. You know, it takes time for this stuff to start to show itself. Because Clark, you know, she played soccer, tennis, basketball, softball, all this kind of stuff, and it didn't really start to affect her until she was 12. She was about 12, right? Yeah. And and the celiac, I just learned about that, but it is in Karen's family, so that's a possibility too. So, and it's a intolerance for gluten. I'm not sure if you're real familiar with it.
I am.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway. But my hope is that, you know, we can get the government to acknowledge that this is not over. You know, they need to start taking some responsibility for our children and our grandchildren. And the British, I joined NAV, it's been 10, 15 years ago now, and I started really learning a lot. And British have done studies, and there's some indications that this genetic damage is going to go on for generations. You know, and I've heard as much as 7 generations. And if it hadn't been for Joan's spirit, wouldn't be a Clarkia. Thank the Great Spirit for her presence in our lives. God, I feel like a pussy. I don't know why, it's just, I don't like this usually, but it's just...
Powerful, very powerful stuff. You don't ever talk about it all at once.
that, you know, I'm glad that you were, you know, we can down and, well,
I'm sure that
I'll take one
I'll
too.
give you a quick rundown on my whole things.
she was amazing and your daughter's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably the sister's spirit that makes your daughter so strong.
She was tough.
Well, I think we did a good job raising her.
Of course.
But she's a phenomenal young lady. She's a musician. She's a great vocalist. And she's the light of our life. And we wish we had more. But the other three, they didn't make it. And, you know, a similar thing happened when this man named Sorsky died. And my wife got pregnant after that occurrence. And then my dad died. My wife got pregnant after that. I don't know what spirit it was on the third time. I just don't know. But I'm a great believer in the spirit. And there's just no question about it in my mind. You can just, some spirits get to come back and some don't. So that's kind of my philosophy. Well, anyway, when I got back from Christmas Island, I went to the fleet to NAS Lemoore, and I was put in an attack squadron. And so, because they decommissioned VPA 72 after, you know, we finished up at Christmas Island, but I still had basically a year or so to go on my enlistment that was required. And so we went out, and eventually we were in Manila, and the Ranger, which was the aircraft carrier at Yankee Station at that time, which is off the coast of Vietnam, lost another cat, so they had 3 catapults down, so they could no longer function as a guard. So we were called out of Manila, and we steamed to Yankee Station and commenced bombing operations almost immediately. So we were there for like 14 days, 24 hours a day, just flight ops, bombing, strafing, etc. And when we got relieved, all of a sudden the powers that be in Washington decided that it wasn't a good idea that we were shooting up all these Russian and Chinese ships and shit at Hanoi, and so they called it off. And so we flew the first strikes off the Ticonderoga in Air Group 5. And at that point in time, we lost a shitload of pilots. We were operating a Typhoon. We launched an aircraft into a wave that came 40 feet above the flight deck and just launched the airplane in it, didn't slow down, didn't do nothing. We lost a heavy and almost ran into the ship. We had pilots calling in and saying, "Hey man, I'm out of fuel, buddy. You know, let me in." Bam, he's in the drink, and it was a mess. And I thought, well, Jesus Christ, you know, this is dangerous. But anyway, we lost a lot on the strikes, and just total asinineness, not being able to get back aboard. You know, you're operating in a Typhoon, it's crazy. You know, at some point in time, you gotta say, you know, let's just slow down. But
Enough is enough.
I would go to sleep at midnight, and we're up flight ops, 4 in the morning, bang, we're going again. And just, you know, not quite 24 hours a day, but damn close to it. And at that point, I decided, you know, I don't think I'm gonna hang here, and I'm basically gonna get out, because otherwise I'm gonna get dead if I get my flight trained in and all that. It's just not that I, you know, didn't have my faith in my ability to be good at it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are. It's like I said, it's to whom it may concern. And you know, when it was guns, it was skill, but it's not guns anymore, it's rockets and And so I decided, you know, I'm just not going to do it. And so anyway, I got out of the service, and I felt like I got kind of shafted. So I didn't even finish up my my reserve obligation. So I got a general discharge, but it was under honorable conditions, because I just said, you know, fuck you. I ain't doing this no more. I was really pretty burned out, and it felt that I'd been kind of shafted. Anyway, so I didn't complete my reserve obligation, but and one of the reasons was I just kind of told them to shove it, and they didn't really, you know, care for that very much. But on my shipping over lecture, they just said, you open your mouth about this and you're going to spend the rest of your life in Leavenworth, and we're going to throw the key away. And you know, that was about my nuclear experience. So that was like, Karen wanted to bring everybody kind of got this. Most everybody I talked to said, you know, you can't talk about this. And I didn't even talk to my wife about it. I didn't talk to anybody about it. And so then in the 90s, when I learned we could talk about it, that was the first time that Karen even knew about it. Just, you know, you just didn't talk about it. You know, they terrified you. Yeah.
Was it heavy to carry around that?
I just threw it out of my mind. I didn't think about it. If I didn't think about it, I wouldn't talk about it. So I put it aside totally.
When did you find this group?
Golly, in the 90s.
I think you found the squadron first.
Yeah,
and
well,
then
we
they
hooked
told
up with the squadron. We started having reunions with the squadron. And then, you know, we learned that we could converse about it. And the guy who organized our squadron, or who did organized the reunions, he's the one that actually told me about NAV. And so then I hooked up with NAV, and I didn't attend a convention right away because it was some of them were in conflict with when the squadron got the reunions, but squadron guys are kind of even dying off now, and we don't know if we're ever going to have another reunion. I think we were down to like, I don't know, how many hats did I make? 25? So I think we're down to about 20 guys that are showing up. Well, squadron had almost 400 people in it. So, you know, there's been a lot of attrition, just, you know, and a lot of guys died right away. One of my better friends just banged. He was, you know, maybe 5 years after that. But the funny thing is he was probably only on the island once or twice. Maybe he only saw 1 or 2 bomb drops. That's kind of why I'm wondering, you know, the heavier exposure, maybe, you know, like you were saying.
Flu shot.
Flu shot, yeah, vaccine,
just, you know, kind of like that. But anyway, I got out, and then I went to college. I got a associate in science degree, and I went to, I don't know, do you want to go into what we did later on? Or,
please tell me.
Okay, well anyway,
I care about you.
Okay, I became a private investigator. I did that for 25 years. And
why?
It was very exciting, very interesting. You know,
okay.
I've always wanted to have some interesting things happen, so I did that. And then I got kind of burned out at that, and I went into carpentry and, you know, built some houses, apartments, and this sort of thing. And did some solar, started doing some solar jobs, not the solar itself, but doing foundations for solar installations. And then I decided to get Social Security and just kind of do side jobs and stuff like that about the time I was it 63 or 64 or something like that. So, and I don't know, just burned out at this. So, at any rate, that's it.
So can you tell me what kind of private investigating did you do? Was it like sit outside?
I was a criminal investigator.
Oh.
I did arsons. I did a kidnapping or two. I worked with the FBI. I worked with internal affairs, sheriff's departments. I carried a gun. I shot it once. Didn't try to kill anybody. Just I was in riots at Bakersfield when Watts occurred. Same thing happened in Bakersfield, and this asshole was shooting at me, so I shot back, but mainly I was trying to get the hell out of there. It was no personal thing. And the only other time I had to put my hand on my gun and say, you know, if this thing comes out, you know, we got a real problem. But Luckily I never had to really shoot anybody. So, like I say, I had to fire my gun once, but I wasn't intending on killing anybody. I just wanted the son of a bitch quit shooting at me. But that was, like I say, during the Watts riots. And, I got attempted rat packed and beat up a time or two, but jumped, stuff like that. But when I was a kid, I loved to fight. I never had any problems with kicking somebody's ass, and it just, I liked it, I liked to fight. And at some point in time, you kind of grow out of it. But I was never really physically afraid of any one person. I didn't give a damn how big they were. If I had to, I'd grab something and hit them with it. But you grow out of that. My wife, once I hooked up with her, then there was no more barroom brawling and, screwing around trying to get laid and all this. And she just really settled me down. And
a good woman will do that.
Thank the Lord for that. God knows what would happen to me. I probably wouldn't have made it this far. I was just carousing a little bit too heavy. Well, anyway, we're pretty happily married. We have a very good marriage, and we have a beautiful child. And I just wish we had more.
Well, do you feel like there's anything that we haven't discussed or that should be added to this interview?
I'll probably think of something later, which is usually the way things work. I can't really think of anything now. Like I've had some physical things. I have one testicle larger than the other, much larger, which I think may be a result of that. I've had an aortic aneurysm and 4 stents put in. I have glaucoma, which may or may not be involved in that too. That's it. But other than that, I'm relatively healthy. I've had problems with my feet due to bad circulation, but the surgeries, the stents, and all that's really helped that out quite a bit. The VA said I had arthritis for a long period of time. Well, it came to find out that I was having difficulty with circulation down there, but it's actually getting better. And if you can, I've got an electric bike that I ride. It's kind of cool. I used to ride motorcycles, which you probably would have thought that anyway. But I decided after they tried to kill me twice, that was not the way to go. That's when I took up flying, actually, when I got my pilot's license. Sold my motorcycle and got my pilot's license.
Anything going fast, huh?
Yeah, anything going fast, the wind in your hair. Yeah. Anyway, okay. I still like the wind in my hair, but I skied. With my legs and my feet. I haven't skied in several years, but skiing was my great passion. It's just nothing like slipping down the slopes and just jamming. And I really love to ski. I may be able to get back at it. I'm actually quite a bit better since the surgeries. So I may be able to stick the sticks back on. I haven't thrown them away. So, and they're still good. I got really good equipment. Bindings are still good. Boots are still good. So who knows?
Good luck.
Even the poles, I might get back to it.
Okay. So what message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear or view this interview?
We need to stop our government and all other governments from even any kind of nuclear testing. We need to get rid of these bombs. With global warming coming, we may not live long enough to get this accomplished, but the world is changing very, very quickly, and we have a little bit of an international group now, but I think we need to get the Indians, the Afghanistanis, the Russians, the Chinese, everybody that's done anything with nuclear development. We need to bring into this umbrella group which we're working on forming now, and get the people to make our governments start thinking properly, to get them to realize that this just can't go on. As soon as that trigger's pulled, we're all gone. And it's bad enough as it is now. with, you know, with the situation of global warming, and it's man-caused, there's absolutely no question about it. The Industrial Revolution is where it started, and God only knows when it's going to end, and we were bucking the system for a little while, but all of a sudden this year now we're increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, and it's going to kill us unless we get control of it. That's all there is to it. I think that's about it.
Okay, good message.
Wow.
All right. That concludes our interview with Michael Cobb. Thank you for your time today and for your military service.
Thank you.